everyone, and thank you for listening to the Path 11 podcast. We are speaking with an organizational consultant and ordained Buddhist chaplain in end-of-life care, Pierre Zimmerman. Pierre has been working in behavioral and elder health care for over 30 years in many capacities, including business administration, program development, and contracting and marketing in the U.S. and in Canada. He holds a bachelor's in psychology and philosophy and a master's degree in organizational management. Pierre was ordained as a Buddhist chaplain in Santa Fe in 2011 and worked at the D'Amour Cancer Care Center at Baystate Medical Center as an interfaith chaplain-in-training for American Clinical Pastoral Certification. He is now mentoring chaplaincy students and teaching core programs at the Upaya Zen Institute in Santa Fe. And we're also really interested in speaking to Pierre today about his mindfulness trainings. And just also wanted to let you know that not all of the people that we're able to speak with have the capability to tune into Skype, where the audio is a little bit clearer. So this interview was done via landline, and you just might notice a little bit difference in the quality from some of our other podcasts. But we'd like to welcome Pierre Zimmerman to our show.
Thanks so much, Pierre, for coming on our show.
My pleasure.
Now, I actually met Pierre through just working here in Saratoga Springs. He and his wife run a wellness center called One Roof, and then they also expanded their business to have One Big Roof, which is where they allow practitioners to rent space and hold workshops and things of that sort. So I've been able to do that with my own practice, and I think Pierre is just a great guy and doing wonderful work in the community here in Saratoga Springs, and asked him to join us and come on the podcast. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I would like to just learn a little bit more about how you came to mindfulness in your life. I know that you're ordained as a Buddhist chaplain. You're running Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction programs, and it's really kind of part of your practice. So how did you come to this in your life?
Sure. So I came in this country when I was 21, and I happened to meet some Tibetan Rinpoches and Lamas, and was very interested in the practice. I actually have an undergraduate degree in philosophy and sort of Oriental philosophy too. So I always had an interest, and I practiced meditation for quite a few years now, probably close to 40 years, on and off during my life in corporate healthcare, but it kept me sane, so to speak. At any rate, I did quit the corporate world about 8 years ago, and 10 years ago actually, and decided to take the course on mindfulness-based stress reduction so I could teach. And I really wanted to be with clients or patients and do that kind of work. And I actually ran into Dr. Niemer in Santa Fe, where I was doing my program for chaplaincy, and it was a silent retreat, and I heard her talk about mindfulness and their training in Saratoga, and we connected, and she told me to come up to Saratoga, and she will have a place for us to do that kind of work, and I'm glad I did. And it's just wonderful work to see people make shifts in their lives. We have a wide variety of people who join. We have physicians, we have nurses, teachers. We also have people who retired. We have people who are stressed out in the workplace or burned out, so to speak. And we also have people who come out of mental health work, their own or with other people. And we changed the program a little bit from the original program at UMass Medical Center. We added more neurobiology, neuroscience, and also some more movement, what we call embodied awareness programs, where we move in silence, in pairs and triads, and do some work on how to be engaged, how to be in relationship in a mindful way.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. And what type of mindfulness and meditation do you teach? Because I feel like you can go on the website and you can find meditations, but there's different types of ways to meditate. It could either be like a guided meditation, breath meditation, different types of meditation through yoga. So can you explain a little bit of what the mindfulness...
Well, in terms of mindfulness, the definition is it's embodied awareness, paying attention in a moment, with an intention or curiosity and letting go of judgment. So it's really looking at our interior landscape and the geography of the heart, so to speak, and not be distracted by any, outside sort of forces, so to speak. So we really want to have people learn how to be really present to themselves and also the world around them, so that they can take it into the world and not just sitting on a cushion. Some of it is based on Buddhist practices, more psychological practices. We do mix a whole bunch of topics during the class, for instance, like forgiveness, how to build resiliency. Some of it is guided, but over time, as people practice, we talk less and less so that people really can be with themselves. Become intimate with the breath. The breath is very crucial and important. It's sort of an anchor when people get spacey or kind of really get lost in what we call the mind stream, which are thoughts, memories, fantasies, projections, all the conceptual parts of the mind, our thinking process. And so in the beginning, we focus people on paying attention to the breath, to what comes up, accumulates and dissipates, just really looking at the relationship they have with what emerges and dissipates. That's really basic. It's very difficult to do because in our society we sort of function from the head up and then neck up, and we're constantly thinking, analyzing, evaluating, and we very much rewarded for that. So while we call ourselves human beings, we pretty much human doings, and this practice helps us to balance the being and the doing in many ways. It's also balancing attentional focus, cognitive, emotional, as well as volitional in terms of the intentions. So some of it is not all that different from others, but I think the focus is really on the practice, and the more people practice, the more they're going to make shifts in their lives and towards well-being and well-flourishing.
Now, I know a lot of people would agree and know or have heard that meditation is really good for the body. There's some, physiological effects that can happen when you quiet the mind and you're breathing and you're meditating. Can you speak more about how meditation can affect the body physically?
Sure. So the first few classes in the mindfulness program that we teach are really to help people getting more embodied. So we do body scans. Also, I call it body relaxation with people who have chronically ill or catastrophic illnesses. But the idea is to really feel sensations in the body. And there are a lot of somatic issues with people, and I think most of us are not feeling sensations in our bodies. So we want people to really experience that. We take them through exercises from top of the head all the way down to their toes. And the body has a lot of wisdom and information for us. For instance, when we get activated emotionally, we know our blood pressure rises, we get sweaty, we start moving around. So if we use mindfulness, which one of the elements is to sort of use a pause to be aware of what's going on. So the body can inform us, okay, I'm getting angry, for instance. I can feel it in my body. And then we can use our mind to slow things down rather than react. And we can, get some insight. Okay, this is what happened. I'm getting all activated, and I need to stop. And we actually use the acronym STOP for taking that little pause. And basically the S stands for stop. The T means that we take quite a few deep breaths so that we can calm the body down again. The O stands for open up to what emerges inside. Excuse me. And then P stands for proceed thereafter. So it gives us a little bit of safety valve from reactivity. and we can assess what's going on and then maybe take the time and energy to respond to what's going on. Viktor Frankl, who went to horrible things in concentration camps, has a great quote. Somebody asked him, how did you deal with it? And he said, between every stimuli and every response, there's a pause, and in that pause lies freedom. So it's taking that moment of awareness, not to react, not to act, and then regret it afterwards, but to really sort of assess what's going on, and then, maybe have some action thereafter.
Wow, I love that quote. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Now, sometimes, I run meditation groups as well, and I find that some people who come and might be beginners, they're almost stressed about meditating. I don't know if you experience this too, but they're so fearful, and they put so much pressure on, wanting to try to control their thoughts or not have any thoughts. And I don't know if you run into this too, but it almost feels like people are feeling like I should stop all thought, and if I can't stop thought and I'm thinking during meditation, I didn't do it right.
Yeah. So we teach what's called effortless effort. So, in the beginning we call it the cascading mind. When people don't take the time to slow down and just sit with themselves and pay attention, what happens is like there's this cascading thought stream coming up, and people kind of, get panicky and more anxious. And we tell them that's, we call it the monkey mind. It's natural, because when we don't take the time with this practice, that's what happens in the beginning. And so, we teach them to be really kind to themselves and just observe what happens, what emerges. And I compare it often to, like a stage event. So you're not the producer, you're not the writer, you're not the actor. You're just observing sort of the drama that develops in your own mind. And what we're really interested in is looking at the relationship we have with things. So we don't try to change it. We attempt not to be hijacked by our mind stream, but we just pay attention. And letting go of judgment is a big piece, and that's what we focus on a lot, because judgment is a one-way street. It's a dead end. And what we tell people instead is to use discernment. What is beneficial, what's not beneficial. Is it really worth getting anxious? And if you do get anxious, just call it, name it what it is. I'm anxious, without a qualifier. And that tends to slow the body down too, because, we get into neurophysiology. We have the insula, who sort of has a map of the body. So just naming something without a qualifier helps calming the body down. So there are all these little techniques. But, people want to stop thoughts, and I tell them, forget it. Because it's going to take a long time before you get into those little islands of non-thoughts between the continuum of consciousness, So, but really, we really suggest people to really be kind to themselves, because we have a big critique in our head, most of us do, and judgment is really a waste of time in this practice.
Now, with practicing, you said you've been practicing for over 40 years. You've had a meditation practice?
30. Okay. I mean, I practice on and off. In my younger years, I practiced for quite a while. Then I got invested in the corporate world, and I did practice, not on a regular basis, but probably for the 25 past years, pretty much practice every morning. Again, my own humble opinion is that 20 minutes, 30 minutes is better than sitting there for an hour and going shopping or being somewhere else in your mind. So the more attention we can use and be present in the moment, the better off. And for a lot of people, we do a drop-in with each class for about 10 minutes, which is the way to start, just to be quiet, to drop into stillness and vividness. So it takes practice like everything else. If you want to be proficient at playing violin, they say 10,000 hours. We'll start from the beginning, and 10 minutes every day is a good thing. So.
And how would you say, or how have you recognized your meditation practice how did it evolve over these 30, 35 years? Like where do you see yourself now, or how are you able to get into that meditative state, and is it different than when you first began?
Oh, it's very different. It took a lot of evolution because I went to a lot of different retreats and workshops or hourly, presentations with a lot of Tibetan people and also inside meditation folks, and then later on Zen, which is much more rigorous in the sense of the form part. But basically, it's the same process. And over years, what really changed for me is the depth and the understanding. So again, certainly a lot more clarity, a lot more wisdom. It also became more tender because of the practice of loving kindness and compassion. And, in Buddhism, we talk about the two wings of the bird, which are compassion and wisdom. You can't have without the other one. You can have one without the other one. In other words, if you have lots of compassion, it gets you into a danger zone because we're going to get fried, we're going to get burned out, and compassion with is dangerous. Compassion for, having empathy for, is much better, so we don't get wrapped up in the storylines of other people and their suffering. Wisdom is very important, and that's gained through the practice of sitting and getting more clarity of who I am in relationship to other people, even though we do that in a sitting, position by ourselves. But it allows us to be more connected to the rest of the world and also be engaged, socially engaged, I think. Where in the beginning I was just interested to sit on a cushion, be by myself, very often zoned out and just dissociated and got lost for an hour and then came back, and I thought it was wonderful. Where now I look at that as, that's not really it. There's very little to do with that. And the other piece is taking this practice into the real world, which is very difficult. And we also teach mindful communication, which is very important in terms of how to be in the real world, meeting our edges with partners, with other people in the workplace with different contexts, and how to really be mindful, which is a real challenge. Because as human beings, we're very tender and we can get aroused very easily.
And with mindful communication, can you expand a little bit on that? Is it more teaching that when you really are across from someone or speaking with someone that you're very present and holding the space for them, as opposed to maybe having a conversation but doing a couple of things on the side, or maybe running things through your head?
Right. So in class we teach about assertiveness versus being passive versus being aggressive or passive-aggressive. In other words, how do we take care of our needs? Everybody has needs. There's nothing wrong with needs. It's the strategies we use to meet our needs. And how can we do that? How can I meet my needs and also allow the other person that I'm involved with, whether it's at work or at home or family, how can I also allow them to meet their needs? And that's tough. We talk about nonviolent communication. In other words, we observe what's going on. We don't label people or diagnose them. We make requests rather than demand. We sort out what feelings are versus thoughts. A lot of people tend to say, I feel that, blah, 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 and that's a thought. And a lot of people have actually a hard time identifying feelings and mentioning feelings. And nobody can take away your feelings. You feel sad, you feel angry, whatever it might be. Nobody can argue with that. Where if I say I feel that you, as soon as we put out the you, we create separation. Mm-hmm. So we look at that and how we can express our needs, feelings, and communicate in such a way where other people don't get aroused either. So trying to avoid conflict, or if there is conflict, how to come back later on when things calm down and say, I need some space. I won't abandon you. I'll come back, but right now I can't talk. I can't formulate anything in a way that might be beneficial for both of us. So it's a whole technique that we take people through, and we look at how people rescue other people and how they don't meet their needs by doing that, or how people feel as victims and how they need to snap out and get into an empowerment triangle, and then people who sort of use their power upon us for different reasons. So we look at the drama triangle and then the empowerment triangle, how to move from one to the other. And, it's tough being a human being. I mean, that's what we really explore is how tender we are, how we can get hurt easily, and also all our triggers and all our sort of self-talk that we use that's not always beneficial.
Right. Yeah, and I think it was a couple of weeks ago before I reached out to you, I had a client of mine that is in remission from cancer, and I knew that you guys ran a cancer support group, and that's how I stumbled on another one of your pages and learning that you too are a survivor, I believe, of a stage 4 cancer?
Yes. Yeah, so in 2001 I was living in Saratoga on a lake, and I was going to go back into the city to start a company, to basically psychiatrists and psychologists to help them with managed care, because I did a lot of contracting for a big organization. And then 9/11 happened, and I had back problems, etc. And then one day I actually had blood in my urine and got scared because I knew enough. And I had all kinds of symptoms for a while, but my father's son, you don't go to see a physician unless you can't get up anymore. It's a good old European way of dealing with some kind of illness. Anyways, I did go, found out that I had a serious problem with my left kidney, and I decided to move back to Western Mass where I had a lot of support system, and I did that. And what happened is my kidney, the tumor was so big in my left kidney that it broke through and went into the ureter, so I had problems in the ureter also, not in the bladder. Long story, I got surgery. They took the kidney out. I had chemo for 5 months, which was horrible. And then about 8-9 months later, they took out my ureter. They just basically cut it off and closed my bladder laparoscopically in Boston, which was young Dr. Dahl, who was just a whiz. And I was out for 3 years. It was a tough journey. And was very sick. And, but I think deep down, I sort of had this notion that I'm going to make it. And I also did a lot of alternative. When they told me I had 4 months to live, it was like, what do I have to lose? And I went to a couple of, Dana-Farber, Sloan Kettering, and they said, no, you don't want to mix different therapies. And I did anyways. I did Chinese herbs with a friend of mine who's an acupuncturist in Northampton, did acupuncture, went to a men's group, which was fantastic. I do value the support group system to such an extent. I think it really is a forum for people to be able to talk about issues that very few people understand unless they go through it. So anyways, did that, and here I am. Got more work to do is what I say.
Right. And during that time, did you use your meditation practice or, try to help facilitate your body to heal through meditation?
Yeah, I think meditation really was my saving grace because I didn't sleep a lot. The chemo was, they threw a cocktail together because transitional cell carcinoma is very unusual. So they had about 5 different parts of cocktail, which were awful. And I couldn't sleep, and I felt like I was in a swamp most of the time. And it was just like sitting there kind of mindless because my mind didn't work well. But it was tough. It was some tough moments, and a couple of times doing chemo where I wished, just take me out of this, get me out of here. But it was hard. Meditation did a lot of good in the sense of not unraveling and getting totally into catastrophe. I couldn't eat much, but I think this thought of this fine line between having no control, on the other hand, going like, I need to live. I had one grandchild at the time. I have 5 now. Actually, my grandchild is 17 now. She was like 1 year old. But it was hard. It was really hard. And I think the other thing that's talked about a lot in support groups is how people really don't understand. So we feel a little bit better, and people go like, oh, you look great. And it's like, no, I don't. I mean, I feel like, just awful. And so, and people are afraid of their own mortality, so they don't know how to deal with somebody. And I think the presencing that's helpful with meditation and mindfulness is so important, to be present. And a lot of people cannot do that. And, often with my patients now, and I teach a couple of support groups in Massachusetts and mindfulness there, and we know when you lie there in bed, we know when somebody comes in the room whether they can be present or not. Because a lot of people will talk a lot, or can I help you, do this, do that, and it's not about that. It's just about, can you hold my hand, and, there's nothing else you need to do. It's just great you're coming here and being with me. So...
Now, do you have any belief system or in trying to understand why sometimes maybe people, do have a certain illness or have cancer, recover from it? I mean, do you feel that it served a certain purpose in your life, or do you try to make understanding as to why this happened and why you needed to go through this?
Yeah, I think it's a natural way of going, like, what did I do wrong is usually the first question. I didn't get into that because I spent a fortune on health food stores since, for the last 40 years. I think it's like what created that. And the variables are so large. I mean, it could be the environment, it could be genetic, it could be predisposition, it could be stress. I mean, you name it. There's so many elements. Certainly had cancer in my family. On my maternal grandfather died of cancer. My paternal grandmother died of cancer. Both of my sisters had cancer, one worse than the other. So, there are all kinds of factors. And I don't think it matters in the long run. We talk in mindfulness. If you hit by an arrow, what we tend to do is we create another arrow, meaning we go like, where did it come from? Is it a designer arrow? Did it come from China? We go into putting up storylines that get us away from what really goes on. And so we don't get into that much when we talk about why we have cancer. It's more about what can we do about it? How can we navigate the health systems, or I should say, the sick care systems, because people want to cure it, and we're talking more about the healing part, which involves the whole person. And and how can we laugh? We have a joke in our group, one of the groups in Amherst, Massachusetts, where about 5 years ago we had a person who had several recurrences, different types of cancer, first lung and then brain and so on and so on. But she was given 6 months to live, so she decided to go to all the places where she always wanted to go in her life. And so she did. And then she lived another couple of years and was basically without money because she spent all the money. So now we tell everybody in the group, where do you want to go in your life? Did you ever want to travel somewhere? And so we have people traveling and actually doing that, and it's wonderful. And a lot of people have been survivors for much longer than the time they were given. I have 6 ovarian women who've had over 6-7 years of, pretty good quality of life. And that's what we really focus on, is how can you improve your quality of life regardless of the quantity of days you have to live. How can you really be alive in the time you've given, or the time that you have, which nobody really knows usually.
And also just trying to integrate that, even if you haven't been given a diagnosis of a terminal illness or have a condition, but how can we, why aren't we taking those trips when we're really healthy? Or,
right.
Just doing it now and having fun and, like you said, and laughing, and what is it that we want to do, but we seem to put that off a lot in life.
Yeah.
But then when something like this or a health scare.
Maybe later, maybe in a couple of years, and sometimes we missed the boat.
Right. So when you were given 4 months to live, was that when they found everything, before they started the chemo?
Yeah, it
or were
before, even before the surgery. Yeah, and I think some oncologists or some professionals will kind of give an estimate, and some people want to know. I did want to know. I didn't like what I heard. And part of it is sort of put one's affairs in order. The issues, the financial issues, there's all kinds of relationship issues. I mean, you name it. It's like all of a sudden the rug is pulled from under your feet, and you go like, okay, what do I need to do? And that too, we don't prepare for that. A lot of people don't have a will. They don't have the 5 wishes forms and all that. So, yeah, I wasn't prepared. Definitely wasn't prepared. And now, after that, I did some trainings on being with dying. We teach a course, an 8-day or 10-day course in Santa Fe at the Zen Center on being with dying for physicians, nurses, because oncology people, palliative care people, and so on. Because it's a way to be present. That's the key piece, but also to look at all the elements of what goes on when a person is diagnosed, because we lose our identity, right? I mean, our whole notion of who we are sort of disappears all of a sudden when we become incapacitated, or we really under the care of somebody else or several people.
Yeah, and would you like to talk a little bit more about some of the programs that you are doing in Santa Fe?
Sure. So I mentor a bunch of chaplains. We have 2 cohorts. So I'll give you an example. In March, I'm going for 10 days. And I teach this embodied awareness program, which is movement. And in part of it is because they get so much top-down information in 10 days that it's good to have something in silence besides meditation, sitting meditation. And we do the movement, then we talk about how to be connected. And I usually do that with the new cohort that comes in. So in March, we're going to have cohort number 9 coming in. They're all brand new, about 25 people. And that will be a great way for them to feel like they are connecting and sort of become a group by themselves. Cohort 8 will graduate. Cohort 7 will graduate, and then they have another year to become ordained, where they do individual work with the teacher. And cohort 8 is in their first year. They're finishing their first year. They're going to take what's called jukai, basically a ceremony where they take on a name. They're part of a lineage, a long Japanese lineage. And they have precepts, meaning they sign up to have sort of an ethical base. So it's like, not killing the mind of compassion. It's not just killing animals or other people, but it's like killing the mind of compassion. It's not stealing or taking away what's not belong to us. So it's not like commandments. It's more like these are the guidelines that is sort of your North Star, but it's a whole ceremony. So I'm going to be there to have meetings because monthly I have phone conferences with cohort 7, cohort 8, and then cohort 7 will graduate. They move on. I'm letting them go, and I'm taking on a new one with cohort 9. And so we have monthly meetings. We talk about how things are going. We talk about their inner chaplaincy, what's going on really internally for them. It's a very strenuous program, very demanding, a lot of workshops to attend and traveling. People are from all over the world, like people from Singapore, from South America, Canada, you name it. So that's part of the work. And when I go down, spending also individual time with people. Some are struggling for all kinds of reasons, and but it's like college. And then I also took what's called Clinical Pastoral Education certification. I didn't finish it because I didn't want to end up working in a hospital. I spent a lot of my work time in hospitals. But I did that at Baystate, and I worked on a cancer unit for a year as part of the formation. But in order to work in a health system as a chaplain, you need to get that what's called certification, clinical pastoral certification, which is a long and arduous process on top of the schooling at the Zen Center, if people choose to.
Now, I know that you also offer some of the mindfulness stress reduction training with law enforcement personnel, and that's a pretty heavy-duty job for them as well. Do you actually follow some of your students after those trainings, or do you have any success stories?
I've done this many years. Boston Stress Unit, they didn't have an employee assistance program, and a lot of the police people feel like they're between a rock and a hard place. They get calls to help people out. When they get there, people just scream at them or whatever. Nothing goes on all of a sudden. And they don't have a release valve for all that energy and being sort of, caught up in this fight, flight, freeze type of energy all the time, reptilian brain energy. And I actually talked to Craig here, the police chief, who is a fantastic person, is a fantastic human being. And so I think there's about 85 policemen, I think. And I've talked to him. He's done other training for the force. The question is whether to do that as a group or different groups, given the size of it, or doing it with people who need to kind of calm down at different times because they get too activated. And we talk. We'll see if we can do something. But this mindfulness is also taught in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and there's a lot of controversy about it. Some people think it makes them better killers. For my humble opinion, I think it's actually helpful because they have a lot of post-traumatic stress, and it helps them not to be as reactive. We actually had on the faculty in Santa Fe, some people, we had a brigadier general, a woman who was part of the faculty who teaches trauma resiliency. And so there's a lot going on in different contexts, and I do see benefits more than not. But being a police woman or police man is a very difficult job, and I think in this town they do a fantastic job, really, for the most part.
Yeah, I'd agree. And then were you also mentioning that you do some consultation online for people? So if they wanted to contact you to do work with you, what kind of programs do you have available?
I do individually and in person. I was thinking about doing something online, and my skills online are fairly limited. And I'm busy because I give a lot of talks. I do the marketing for our program too. So I have my own time, but I'm busy almost every day. And but I do see people individually, and follow some cancer patients individually. I've done some mindfulness individually, and I just started a group in the hospital here in Saratoga, and kind of building it up. There are about 3-4 people now, and hopefully get a critical mass of people around 7 or 8, which usually is more efficient to have that number of people. So right now building that up and hopefully get it going, and it's open to all types of cancer. People have all types of cancer. And it's really needed. As I mentioned earlier, I think support groups are so important because it's a safe container where people can talk about anything and everything that pertains to their journey, very difficult journey of suffering. And I like to lead those groups. I usually don't do all that much work, just kind of pay attention, observe, and get it going in a direction that's beneficial for everybody.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to to speak with us today. And I love the work that you're doing. And people, if they want more information about the services and the group that you run, they can head over to oneroofsaratoga.com. Are there any other links that
I have a
you'd like to let people?
website that's mindfullivingcommunity.com, where I'm going to start posting more and more pieces that I write that put out there in different articles or different types of meditation. I'm going to do more and more of that so people can benefit from it online. oneroofsaratoga.com is fine.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you kindly. It's really an honor to be on. Thank you.
If you'd like more information about our films or to purchase our DVDs, you can head on over to our website at thepastseries.com. They're also available to purchase on amazon.com.
Our films are also streaming online at vimeo.com, gaiamtv.com, and iTunes.
If you have a show suggestion or would like us to interview someone specifically, please feel free to shoot us an email at info@thepastseries.com or send us a tweet at thepastseries.
Please rate and review us in iTunes and subscribe.
We hope you enjoyed the show.